Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. Strange things indeed they do happen in this world. The message, it reads like this. Hello, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? I am a Zimbabwean woman and I am a pastor. Even though you say that there is a lot of corruption that is happening in our country, but you have no idea as to how much corruption happens in church. I am a pastor, and the funny thing about it is that these days, when you are a pastor, then automatically your partner, people will just think that they also become a pastor and they always had a calling to be a pastor. But my husband, he became a pastor because of the corruption that happened in church. He was never supposed to be a pastor, and as a matter of fact, my husband never went to school of theology. He knows nothing about it, but yet he is a pastor. All of his papers that shows that he went to college just came whilst he was seated at home doing nothing really. So he became a pastor because I went to Bible school. I should have never gotten married to my husband, but it was because I loved the fact that he had money. His parents were wealthy and they are still wealthy. That is why I dumped my boyfriend that I had when I was still in Bible school, and I thought that it would be far much better for me to date and to get married to my husband because he was wealthy and his parents were wealthy. My name is Mercy. That is not my real name. I do go to church, and a couple of weeks ago, I was in South Africa. I had been invited by this other church in Durban. We went there. You should see the amount of money that these people, they gave to us as a love offering. Let me tell you something about people these days in church. When you are someone that has a beautiful car, you have a nice home, then automatically people will think that you have been blessed by God. So whenever me and my husband go somewhere else to preach as guest pastors, automatically people will just think that we are blessed by God. And what they do not know is that me and my husband, we follow the ways of our ancestors. We even do traditional ceremonies, but in church, when we talk about our ancestors, we will tell those that do not know anything that our ancestors are demons. And as we will be teaching them that their ancestors, they are demons, in secret at night, we can have traditional ceremonies that will cause our ancestors to give us blessings. And in church, they will think that we are being blessed by God because of the work that we do. So me and my husband, we were in Durban, and there in Durban, we were given a lot of money, and we returned back to Zim. Let me take you back when I met my husband. I was still in Bible school at that time, and I was dating my poor boyfriend. I was 22. I was at a Bible school here in Harare studying ministry. I had a quiet boyfriend then. He was a fellow student. He was poor. His parents were as poor as my parents were, but we loved each other. And all that he could give to me was hope that one day after we would have graduated as pastors, when we would be leading our own small ministry, God was going to give us financial blessings and we would be able to live the way that we wanted. That was all that this man could give me, hope with no evidence that these things were going to happen. Then this man that became my husband, I met him one day when I was in the CBD. The man then came and he spoke with me. I looked at him and I looked at the car that he was driving, and I said, this is the man that can take care of my family, that can take care of my entire generation, that will change my life. I then started mistreating my boyfriend because he had no money, he had nothing. And when someone does not love you anymore, then what they will do is that they would look for an excuse so that the both of you can just break up. That is what I did with my ex-boyfriend. I told him that since he had once told me that he wanted to start his own church, so this went against the doctrine that I believed in. No one was supposed to leave church, and he wanted to start his own church. So then I said that we were no longer compatible. But before this, I knew that this was his vision. He wanted to start his own ministry, and I was going to support him. But because I had met another guy that came from a wealthy family, and that was when I decided to break up with him using that excuse, and indeed that was the excuse that I used against him. So Brother Nashi, life continued. I was dating this guy, and then he introduced me to his parents. When I arrived at his parents' home, I was so excited. They had too many cars, and I was told that one amongst all the Mercedes Benz that they had at their house, a very big mansion in the suburbs, I was going to be given one of the car. And then my boyfriend started teaching me how to drive. I said, now this means that life has changed. My boyfriend, he did not even know how to drive a car. And here I was being taught how to drive. And then I got a license. We got married to each other in secret against the wishes of some of the leaders in church. But after we had gotten married, then I started staying with my husband. And since the people in church, they did not want other people to know that my husband, he grew up going to the Seventh-day Adventist church. So that was when that whole corruption thing happened. So my husband, even to this very day, in his heart, he is still someone who believes in the doctrine of the Seventh-day Adventist church, just that we do this for the sake of money, and since he is a pastor in our church, but he truly never left his church. So he became a pastor simply because the leaders of our church, they said that it is impossible for you as a pastor in our church, then your husband keeps on going to the Seventh-day Adventist church. So he was then made to become a pastor through the corruption that happened in church. I later found out that my husband's family, they do these traditional ceremonies, calling upon the spirits of the dead, as well as communicating with the ancestors. This was after we had returned back from our honeymoon. So my husband's family, they donated a house for me and my husband. After the honeymoon, we went there to see our house, and before we could move in, my husband then said, no, we have to wait for my parents. At that time, they had returned back to Chipinge. That is where they do come from, and they are elders in the Seventh-day Adventist church. I did not know a lot of things about them back in those days. When they came back, that was when my mother-in-law told me that it is not something that is good for a woman to move into a new house without doing proper things. So I thought that we were going to pray. We then went to our new house. It was me, my husband, and my in-laws. When we got there, I was surprised because I saw my father-in-law and my husband. They were taking out some clay pots from the boot of the car, and then they filled them with water, and then they started sprinkling all around the house, doing a traditional ceremony. My mother-in-law told me not to panic, even though we were Christians, but this was being done to chase away all the evil things, all the evil spirits that might be haunting that house. And then that was when I was given a small hole that I was supposed to use to dig a small hole, and I did as I had been instructed. And then that was when we were given a horn, and I was told to put that horn inside that hole that we had dug. And then that was when we poured some oil on top of that horn. My mother-in-law told me that we did this ritual so that when a witch tries to enter into my yard or into my house, then that horn would be brought from the earth, and it will start to fight with that witch or a bad person with bad intentions that will try to harm my family, and they will start to experience spiritual warfare in their life. and that is what we did. So from there on, I started to understand that in this family that I got married to, my mother and my father-in-law, in secret, they are both traditional healers. When they are not at church, they do strengthen other prophets and other pastors that might have started their own small ministries. So I then found out about this, and I was okay because my brother was staying at my in-laws house and he was going to college. It was something great that they were doing for my family. And then that was when my husband told me that all of his family members, they do these things in secret. They do go to church, but they do worship the spirits of their ancestors. And as for my father-in-law, he then told me that the reason as to why he is rich like that, it is because whenever he meets a family from their Seventh-day Adventist church, a family that will be poor, maybe deep in the rural areas, what he does is that he will go there as an elder of the church and pretending as if he just wants to donate something to that family, food, money, can even offer to take that child to school. So in secret, what he will do is that he will start to perform rituals. Like each and every person is born with a spiritual gift. So there are those kids that are born with spiritual gifts such that they are supposed to help the family to get out of poverty. There might be a spirit of poverty that would be following the family. So what he does, my father-in-law, is that when he donates money to that family, then he will steal the gifts that the child would have been born with. And usually this is how he performs this ritual. He can invite the family to bring their child to his house there in the suburbs. So they will come there feeling very excited, and then he would give in secret this child a coin, those old coins that they used back in those days. And when he gives that child the coin, then he will say, can you give me back my money? So the boy or the girl will give my father-in-law his old coin back because it is valueless. And after that, that is when you will take out maybe $100 note and they will say that, oh, you see, we have exchanged money. You have given me my old coin back and I have given you this money. So when he does that financial transaction with that child, it means that he is buying the spiritual gifts that the child would have been born with. And when the family leaves, they leave with their child, but the gift would have been stolen. So my husband told me that it is not an evil thing because the family anyway does not believe in the ancestors. So it is okay for his father to do such a thing, and he uses those spirits in his businesses. So these are some of the things that I got to find out about my husband's family. And then that was when I was told that even I was supposed to worship my ancestors. Brother Nashi, even though I am a pastor, but there is a traditional ceremony that we did, and I bought all the necessary things that I bought, those that are used by traditional healers. We do go to church, we preach, but people do not even know that this is what we do. As for my husband is gifted as well. When he prays for someone, then things happen in that person's life. And this is how my husband will change your life. When my husband is praying for you, what people do not know is that my husband, he would be whispering, speaking with your ancestors. He would be telling them to help you, asking for forgiveness on your behalf if there are sins that were committed by your forefathers that causes you not to find a job, not to be okay in life. So after praying with you, as he is speaking with your ancestors, that is when you will start to notice that your life is moving in the right direction. And people do not know that it is because you would have spoken with your ancestors on your behalf in secret, as he would be busy praying for you, thinking that this is just a man of God that is telling God to release me if there are cases that have been brought in my life. So I just want to warn other people out there. It is not everyone in church whom you meet that has good intentions. There are those people that are evil-hearted in church. And usually what I have noticed is that when you see that your life is not going anywhere, then you need to be suspicious, because in that same church where you go to, there might be someone who is actually bewitching you, because most of the people, they tell those that they go to church with about all the things that they are planning to achieve in life. But what they do not realize is that it is even possible that the person that is bewitching you is in church. The person that you keep on informing that this year I want to achieve ABC, that same person is the one that is bewitching you. And these days, people, they do not care about God anymore. And usually what happens is that in church, when a testimony is being given by a poor person, people will just say amen because they are in church. But if someone that is wealthy goes and stand in front of the church, and then they will tell the church that God has blessed me because I have bought a car, I have bought a new house, everyone in church will start to celebrate, because us as human beings right now, we do not value God, but we only value the material things. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our sister who gave us this message. Tell me what you think about it in the comment section.